Okay, welcome back to the Solution Club. We're recording again after much great conversation, and we're sort of summarizing here. And I've made a kind of a summary that um, in order for humanity to even have the head, the mind, the clarity of mind to focus on her mother, Mother Earth, and the urgent need that Mother has for an oxygen mask called SRM in order to survive, we first have to put on our own oxygen mask. And I believe the single most important oxygen mask we can put on humanity at this point is called healthy plant-based food and clean water, as a first step towards resuscitating humanity. Because, and it's, the thing is, yeah, sure, most of humanity eats. I get it. Not everyone is starving. Maybe a billion or so are severely malnourished to starving. That number has grown significantly in the last year due to COVID and economic collapse and everything else. And it's growing by the day. It's getting worse by the day. But nonetheless, you might say, well, shoot, the 80% of humanity that's not hungry, why aren't they focused on SRM? And here's the reason why. We're all playing a game of Monopoly here, where the price of losing is death by starvation. If you're one of the losers of the game of the all-day Monopoly game that is so all-consuming. Earlier, I talked about how my former boss, Bill Gates, is just utterly consumed by the game, right? And he's become addicted not only to being a billionaire, in this case, 100 billionaire, he's addicted to the number one spot. And since losing the number one spot, he is in a life and death scramble to get back to number one. And of course, like a herd of elephants racing to some water hole, they're trampling over life under their feet. And missing the opportunities to actually heal the planet. So in order for life, for humanity to focus on Mother Earth sitting next to us on the airplane seat, right? We first have to put on our own oxygen mask. And for the vast majority of humanity, it's actually a mental oxygen mask of knowing that even if you completely stop all your hoarding, your efforts to hoard, you're still going to eat nutritious food because it's going to be delivered to you. So once we create this massive public good, this massive and permanent public good of healthy food for everyone, regardless of whether you work or not, regardless of whether you're Republican or Democrat or fascist or Green Party or whatever, we're going to feed you. We're going to feed you. We have the systems in place. So you can literally just sit down and chill out and we'll feed you. Well, obviously people still have things they want to do, but it no longer becomes a game of life and death, survival, hoarding for survival, right? We change the game fundamentally from a game of hoarding for survival to a game of, okay, now that I'm breathing it, I don't have to worry about suffocating and death by starvation. I can now begin to turn my attention to Mother, who's sitting in the seat next to me, and say, Mother, oh my God, I'm so sorry I neglected you for so long, but I was kind of gasping myself. Here, let me help you. Let me help you get your oxygen mask on. And for Mother, the most urgent oxygen mask is solar radiation management. So my foci, I used to have a singular focus, solar radiation management. We got to cool the planet, but no one was listening. And it was only after, I'm a Taurus, so I had to beat my head against the wall and practically destroy the Sierra Club dinners, literally almost destroy the Sierra Club. I'm not joking. I mean, so many people got so angry and a lot of people stopped coming, right? Because they were so tired of me bringing in more and more experts to show them climate change. And because I was like, what is this blindness? What's the nature of this blindness? And it finally clicked for me that it's this all-day Monopoly game that we're playing, where even if you're rich, you're still looking to climb the ladder, because we can never really have enough When the cost of losing is death by starvation, you can never really have enough, because you've got kids and grandkids, and we all want to leave them a pile so that they're not at risk of death by starvation, because that's the penalty for losing at this game of Monopoly. It's so brutal. Living in the United States, where we're privileged and all that, no one really starves to death here. There's food banks and soup kitchens and this and that, and sure, you might feel some shame going there, but it's not like you're going to be turned away, right? Now, you might get COVID in the process of going around to Panhandle and taking the city bus across town to get to the food bank or whatever. So there's definitely other risks, but you're not going to die of starvation. But in a lot of parts of the world, it is death by starvation. And just the fact that starvation happens, right, shows us that it's possible. And so everyone really has that fear in the back of their mind, subconscious somewhere, is, you know what, I had better hoard, or I might not make it, or my kids might not make it, or my grandkids might not make it. And so whether we're Bill Gates struggling to regain the #1 spot of the richest man in the world, or whether we're the poorest person in Somalia, inches away from death, we're all trapped in a game called individual hoarding for individual survival. In the case of Bill Gates, it's survival of his ego. It's survival of his, having that #1 spot. And in the poor person's case, it's literally a struggle for survival. But if we raise the safety net for all of humanity and say, listen, the worst that can happen is, sure, you might be homeless for a while, but you're not going to starve. We're going to feed you. If that's a new reality that all of humanity gets to wake up to one day, and hopefully one day very soon, I believe that will create the conditions for two things. #1, people will say, whoa, if we could do that for food, could we also do that for shelter? The answer is obviously, right? Food to feed everyone is a massive industrial and logistical operation, right? That has to be fed every day. Whole truckloads of whole grain rice and lentils from Canada and tomatoes from California, and on and on and on, have to get shipped and processed and distributed. So that's an ongoing thing. Shelter, you build it once and it lasts for decades. Fine, you have to change the roof every 30 years or something like that. Okay, fine, but it's not like a daily thing. So food is really the hard one. Once we get, and it's not that hard. It's really not that hard. I'm going to show some slides. In fact, let me just go ahead and show them now.
Don't you want the food to be locally grown, so you don't have to truck them all over the place from, get tomatoes from California and something else from somewhere else? Don't you want it to be local?
Definitely. But, just like the alcoholic who's surviving by drinking alcohol, you want them to be completely free of alcohol. But for starters, we have to work with what we've got. And I don't want to tell the starving 3-year-old in Somalia, sorry, we're not going to feed you now because you're in a drought. And until we have, the permaculture and greenhouses and everything set up to grow the food locally. No, so what I'm saying is, we work with what we have, but the first objective is feed everyone. And you know what? If it takes trucking rice and beans to Somalia to feed the Somalis, bring on the trucks and fill their tanks with diesel, is my attitude, right? Fill them to the brim and rev them up, right? Because again, until we change the game where humanity is locked in this life and death struggle for survival, I don't think we're going to have the bandwidth really on a mass scale to do SRM. And it's going to take humanity getting it on a mass scale, right, to do this. We all need to pull together. All nations need to pull together. And we need to stop fighting and start cooperating. And I really think that we need to unlock ourselves from this torture chamber dungeon of individual hoarding for individual survival, which is destroying all of us and all of life on Earth. So anyway, that's why I'm saying step one, feed everyone with whatever tools we've got. Use the tools we have, not the tools that we'd love to have 2 or 3 years down the road, but the ones that we actually have now. Now, as we do that, of course, the next step is invest in local food production, community gardens, rooftop gardens, backyard gardens, front yard gardens, permaculture, et cetera, windowsill gardens, whatever it takes, greenhouses, definitely. But first objective, feed everyone. Second objective, make it local and super healthy and fresh produce that doesn't have to be trucked around in refrigerated trucks while it's losing nutritional value by the hour. No, harvest it this morning, put it in the stew, fresh, and serve it up. Boom, right? That's the ticket. So I see it in stages. So first stage, feed everyone. Second stage, local production in parallel with addressing the shelter issue, the public health issues, the healthcare, et cetera, and many others in parallel, okay? And as we get that chain of dominoes tumbling, then as humanity wakes up, we'll be able to increasingly shift our attention to the urgent matter of SRM, solar radiation management. So let me show you some slides. Let me do a couple things so that I can facilitate that. Oh, why don't we take a break? I think people need a break.
Yes.
Okay, so we take how many minutes do people want? All right, so after a bit of a break and some more discussion, we're continuing to record. And what I want to talk about next, so we've talked about SRM, solar radiation management. We've talked about feeding everyone, partly in order to just take care of people, but also to shift our mindset away from the trap that we're in of individual hoarding for individual survival. And where I got to was, hey, shouldn't those be the two things that we need to focus on? And that's it, SRM and feeding everyone. But as the more I talked about those, I found that people simply weren't getting it. Everyone was still focused on their thing, right? So I was like, what do we do? How do we get people to shift their focus? And it was kind of like herding cats, right? Because everyone who's ever had a cat knows that the cat kind of has a mind of its own. You can't just whistle and the cat comes running and you just tell it to stand on its hind legs and it obediently does so. So the cats have a mind of their own. So it finally dawned on me that instead of trying to get the cat to do something it didn't want to do, like SRM or feeding people or something like that, empower the cat to do what it wants to do and to do it publicly where it can get attention doing what it wants to do. And that was the essence of the press conference. I said, let's do this press conference. So let me screen share and share a little bit about the press conference. Okay, so the press conference. And here's kind of this image. This image actually takes us to where this image shows in artistic form where I believe we need to get humanity, which is in conversation about what? About SRM? About food? No, about what you want to talk about. I think that's the key. Whatever it is you want, if it's Black Lives Matter, great, talk about Black Lives Matter. And so I said, so we created this sign up form so that anyone can sign up and present about any topic that they want. right? If Dot Maver wants to talk about, water, wisdom, meditation, go for it, Dot, right? And if Guy McPherson wants to talk about global warming, go for it, Guy, right? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so at our first press conference, we had consistently about 60 people there for about 7 hours straight. People would come and go, but we consistently had over 50 people there. And people took turns and presented on not what Jamin wanted them to hear, but what they wanted to hear themselves talking about. So, in fact, anyway, so there's a bunch of videos there. Here I'm talking with a couple of super cool guys in Ireland about it who've been super supportive. This is a press conference I did with former Mexican President Vicente Fox some years ago, which I can play a little clip of. That helped teach me the power of press conferences, because this one actually changed the world. It changed the course of history. In fact, I should probably play a little snippet of that, just to kind of give a little background on press conferences. So let me go.
How did it do that? What did it do?
Here, let me tell the story. So back in November 2012, when President Obama was reelected to a second term, on that same exact election night, the states of Washington and Colorado voted to legalize cannabis. And not just medical cannabis, which California had done, years earlier, but cannabis, period. So yeah, even the dude who just wants to get high can actually do it. And so Washington and Colorado voted legalization. 6 months later, the federal government had still not given either a green light or a red light, saying yes or no, we're going to tolerate this or not tolerate. There was no answer. So I called up my old friend, President Vicente Fox of Mexico, whose country has arguably suffered more than any other country from the drug war, right? And I said, Mr. President, he was now ex-president. He served from 2000 to 2006. So in 2013, he had been retired for a few years. And I said, Mr. President, we have an opportunity to change the world. Let's do a press conference. We'll bring together the entire who's who of the cannabis industry. And with you at center, we will demand of the Obama administration, now 6 months into its second term, we will demand that they give us an answer. Yes, we're going to allow legalization to proceed, or no, we're going to stop it. And if they say no, they will do so knowing that they are condemning to death another 100,000 Mexican kids and millions others around the world. Because here's the thing, Rick Steves said it best about the prohibition of alcohol. In the late 20s and early 30s, it's not like there were a bunch of people saying, hey, isn't it wonderful that all these people are screwing up their lives with alcohol? No, nobody was saying that. It's that the harms caused by prohibition itself exceeded the harms caused by alcohol. And it's not like prohibition eliminated alcohol. But now you had two evils at the table. You had alcohol and Al Capone's Tommy guns. That's a pretty deadly combination. And you also had people going blind and getting brain damage from wood alcohol and all kinds of weird stuff. And anyway, with the drug war, it's way, way worse. The country with the lowest rate of heroin addiction in the world is the country that gives away heroin to its people.
Portugal.
Holland. Netherlands.
Huh.
In the Netherlands, they literally have these clinics. If you're a heroin addict and you can't shake the addiction, they say, fine. instead of going down the street to the wrong side of the railroad tracks and buying it in the middle of the night from a criminal drug cartel, come here. We'll dose it for you. We'll make sure it's safe and clean, and we'll administer it right here for free of cost. And so now in Holland, these are public places, and every morning you see these very sad, most of them over 50, heroin addicts who can't shake the addiction, and they go there to get their dose. And mothers with their kids walk by and they point and they say, "Don't end up like that." Right? Don't mess with that stuff or you're going to end up like that. As a result, the rate of heroin addiction for people under the age of 30 in Holland is approximately 0. It's not that there aren't heroin addicts under the age of 30. It's just that, Mike, if you can find one, I'll give you $1 million. There are almost none of them, because they've completely transformed the culture from this fun party drug. Oh my God, shoot up on this and you'll have the best sex ever. No. My God, you touch that stuff, you're going to end up like those folks. Don't do it. Don't do it. It's not worth it. And they've also eliminated criminal drug cartels from the equation. Right? Nobody will buy from them anymore because the government will give it to you for free. They've taken the market away from the drug cartels. So there is such a thing as sensible drug policy, and prohibition has no part of it. So that's the context.
What did Obama say to the question?
Well, first, let me show you how we forced their hand. I'm going to play 8 minutes of video that will change the way you look at prohibition forever. Ready? Let's do it. Okay. Presenting. And I'm going to mute my microphone while I do it for better audio.
Is it recorded?
It's recorded. Oh, yeah, I can stop recording. Shall I stop recording?
Oh, no. Keep it recorded.
Okay, let's keep recording. Here goes.
¿Me permites hacer para la...
Okay. All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you all for being here. Before I introduce our distinguished guests, I would like to begin with a quote from the late astrophysicist Carl Sagan. "The illegality of cannabis is outrageous, an impediment to full utilization of a plant which helps produce the serenity and insight, sensitivity and fellowship so desperately needed in this increasingly mad and dangerous world." Carl Sagan. But by making cannabis illegal, we have instead turned it into a tool for violence, exploited by criminals and organized crime, spanning many countries. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a unique moment in history. The Berlin Wall of the prohibition of cannabis is weak, and it is crumbling as we speak. And just as happened in Berlin in 1989, the old guards who used to protect the wall of cannabis prohibition are laying down their weapons and walking away. What remains to be done is to safely and systematically dismantle the wall of prohibition and replace it with a system of laws, international agreements, regulations, and standards to ensure a prosperous and, above all else, safe cannabis industry. We are moving forward. The states of Washington and Colorado are leading the way. We have waited long enough for some sort of a green light from Washington, D.C., telling us that it is okay to proceed. In fact, the silence from our nation's capital has been deafening. We are moving forward with our plans to build a national and eventually international network of cannabis businesses spanning the production, processing, distribution, and retail of cannabis and cannabis-based products. Our network will span both the medical and the social use cannabis markets. As a first step in building this national network, as CEO of Diego Pellicer Incorporated, I am proud to announce that we have acquired the rights to the Northwest Patient Resource Center, headed by Mr. John Davis, who I will introduce shortly. We are also in the final stages of acquiring a smaller but equally professional chain of medical cannabis dispensaries in the great state of Colorado. With these acquisitions, along with other acquisitions in the works from California to Washington, we are creating the first national brand of retail cannabis. We have also created the first risk-mitigated investment vehicle for investing directly in this $100 billion industry, which is growing by the day. This is a crucial development which will enable us to expand our business model into new markets. Our expansion will be cautious and measured, as my colleague John Davis will discuss. Next, it is my pleasure and profound honor to introduce to you a man who has dedicated his life to transforming his country and our world into a more peaceful, loving, and prosperous planet. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you the first freely elected president of Mexico, Señor Presidente.
Congratulations for that position. This state of Washington, has decided to lead a new path, a path to change the paradigm by legalizing medical and social use of cannabis. In Mexico, we welcome this initiative because the cost of the war, in the case of Mexico, is becoming unbearable. Too high for Mexico, Latin America, and the rest of the world. The impact in the economy, on income, on tourism investment, loss of talent, and above all, loss of hope, and 80,000 kids dead in the last 6 years. All this because our neighbor to the north represents such a gigantic consumer market. We must get out of this trap, and here is the opportunity. Now this group here is moving accordingly from words into plans, and from plans into action, and the action in the arena. To play the real game, this group must understand the need to make good, safe, and legal use of these new laws for the benefit of the people and the common good. I am here convinced of the need for change and the search for new avenues in this difficult and unresolved issue. I am here to witness a paradigmatic change. I have too many questions about the implementation of these new laws and regulations and how it will impact our countries and communities. This is an issue of strategic interest and concern around the world. This historic step today is to be observed and evaluated closely by all of us because it is a game changer. Fox Center is an acting think tank, but also an action think tank. That is why we are here. A new culture will be emerging. New paradigm is arising, moving from criminalization to public health policies, separating health from violence and crime. Everybody should be attentive to ensure a positive, peaceful, and constructive transition.
I'll pause it there. That's the beginning of an hour-and-a-half press conference in which you hear from drug policy experts like John Davis and Aaron Smith. You hear from retired three-star General Skip Dreps speaking on the rights of veterans to use cannabis instead of opiates, which are addictive and very destructive. You hear from Dr. Michael Osborne, president of the Strang Institute for Cancer Prevention in New York City. They're the ones who developed the Pap smear, which has saved more lives than any other preoperative cancer treatment, speaking about the benefits, the health benefits of cannabis. You hear from Henry Wieckowski, the #1 cannabis attorney in the country based in San Francisco. You hear from other government representatives and leaders. You hear from the media, lots of questions. This was a game changer. And it was so successful that we went on and did a 4-part international tour, culminating in a 3-day international symposium in Mexico, right in the heart of the drug war, proclaiming that we were going to make criminal drug cartels obsolete, run them out of the business. The criminal drug cartels responded. And that's a whole other story.
Oh gosh, tell it.
Yeah. Well, I started getting death threats.
Oh.
And the organization which I founded, Diego Pellicer Incorporated, based on the legacy of my great-grandfather, Diego Pellicer, a Spaniard, who was the largest grower of hemp in the world in the Victorian era, based in South Asia, when the Spanish Empire spanned the entire globe. I built a cannabis business, the first cannabis brand, which I talked about in the first national brand of cannabis. The criminal drug cartels infiltrated my organization. And they started making death threats. They said, if you don't get out of the media, if you don't shut the hell up, we're going to get rid of you. My father was dying of cancer, my mother with Alzheimer's, my stepfather in his 90s, aunts and uncles all over the place on the final stretch of life. I did not want for my final gift to my dad to be my head in a box packed with dry ice delivered by the drug cartels. The mafia in California had tried to kill my father years earlier when he shut down the biggest casino they were going to build, a multi-billion-dollar casino in the East Bay. He shut it down. They tried to kill him. They were not successful. So anyway, I took a step back from all that and focused on my real passion, which is feeding everyone. The community cafe image you see on the screen here, right? So what did organized crime do? They infiltrated that too. Yeah, no. They were quite determined. And then I started and they were very explicit about threats of physical mutilation, including crushing my head. This is what they do to the people they really want to send a message to. They put their head in a hydraulic press and they slowly crush it. And they sent a couple of thugs to beat me up and really send me some strong messages. And it was a very, very challenging time of my life. Let's just put it that way. And so I was like, all right, you know, and anyway, it's a long story, but I didn't take it lying down. And in fact, let me show another image. Let me put here. Let's see if I can find. Okay, here we go. So again, it's a really long story, and I'm not going to try to tell the whole thing now because it's still an ongoing thing. It's not this chapter of my life is not over yet.
All right, a farewell song.
Okay, here I am at the University of Washington, dressed as Darth Vader. This is a shadow of a statue of George Washington. And here I started doing public performance art. I did not name the criminal drug cartels who had threatened me, but I got out so public that if you're gonna kill me, you're gonna kill me at the base of the statue of George Washington. Here's my mother next to me, and my sister Betty, and I'll just play a little snippet of this song that I created for the occasion.
To the criminal drug cartels in the state of Washington, this is how we say bye-bye to the violent criminal drug cartels operating in our great state. Criminal drug cartels, criminal drug cartels will cut you down. You won't get up again, so you better get out of town. We'll cut you down. You won't get up again, so you better get out of town. We'll cut you down. You won't get up again, so you better get out of town. We'll cut you down. You won't get up again, so you better get out of town. Criminal drug cartels. Criminal drug cartels. They drink a whiskey drink. They drink a vodka drink. They drink a lager drink. They drink a cider drink.
All right. Just to give you a taste.
Wow.
But anyway, that was a little bit of a detour. What I was I want to bring it back to the main point, which is that press conferences are very powerful, very, very powerful. And so I said, you know, since everyone kind of has their own, you know, thing that they're working on, I thought rather than try to get them to change from what they're focused on to what I'd rather they focus on, I figured out that a much more viable pathway to getting people together and to focus on something in common is give everyone their opportunity to speak and share and invite the world to their conversation, whatever it may be, right? And I figured that through this process of essentially creating a free marketplace of conversation and giving everyone an opportunity to talk to the world and in 5 minutes make their case. Hey, this is why I'm focused on this, and I'm inviting you to a conversation on this. I figured that what would emerge from that would essentially be kind of like a presidential race. You've got the person who ends up in first place, then someone in second place, and then someone in third place, and someone in fourth place, and someone in fifth place, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And may the best ideas prevail, not in terms of winner takes all, that whoever ends up in first place, okay, everyone else stop what you're doing and focus on that, but that we would end up with a concentration of people and organizations and effort on that number one idea, whatever the number one idea ends up being. A smaller concentration on the number two idea, an even smaller concentration on the number three idea, and on down the line. Why not? It's like apply the principles of the marketplace to the marketplace of ideas and movements, right? And I figured by opening up the conversation, and this gets back to the press conference itself, which is just like one giant all-day meeting. I'll share the screen again.
I think I was on it.
Pardon me?
I think I was on it.
I think you were there. I think you were there.
I think
Yeah.
I presented.
That's right. And who invited you?
I was there too.
Yeah, wonderful. And who invited you, Claire? I'm just curious.
How did I get there? I don't know. It was in a breakout group afterwards where it was suggested that the next day you could sign something and suggest what you wanted to present, and next day you could have 2 minutes. I thought it was 2 minutes, not 5.
No, it was 2 minutes. Initially, it was 2 minutes.
Okay, so I don't know how I got on it, except that I can't. Oh, it was probably Humanity Rising, which gave the chat afterwards, which then allowed the presentation after that.
That's right. That's right. That makes sense. That makes sense.
That's where I met you.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And let's just take a look at the list. Just skim through the list of some of the topics that were covered, right? We had Kiko Lab. Charlie and Lauren spoke about the Kiko Lab. Sherry spoke about Today I Choose. These are just the titles.
There's my name down there at the bottom. Very bottom, Global Healing Foundation.
Well,
Claire, there it
you
is.
have it.
See?
There you have it. You're there. You're on the map.
I told you I was in there.
I love it. And there's a link. What the heck? Let's click on the link. Take it away, Claire.
Just unmuting myself. Hi, everybody. This has been utterly inspiring and amazing. I'm so excited to share with you a project that has been going on in the last few months with a nonprofit that I'm the president of called the Global Healing Foundation. That's globalhealingfoundation.org. And what I'm excited about is that I've been in touch with some indigenous people from Colombia, South America. And luckily I speak Spanish, so I'm on WhatsApp with this Spanish-speaking Colombian healer who has been letting me know that their sacred land is being threatened by developers, and they discovered in May a land that a coal company had felled 60 trees from, and it was over 197,684 acres, and they were not going to let that go on. So because I've been able to wire them some money from our foundation and from me, they were standing out in the rain. There was no shelter, no food, but they said they were going to risk their lives. And then because our late founder of the Global Healing Foundation said, yes, they are at risk, pour white light on them, and we did. And the next morning, there was a miracle. They went to the landowner and said, please sell to us and not to the coal company. So one thing led to another, and I was able to send them several payments. And the third one, we had a fundraiser. We had a benefit concert on October 18th, which was very successful. And now they are actually the owners of the land. But this is not a small thing because, is my 2 minutes up already?
Oh, you're getting close, but it's okay to go a little.
Oh, okay. It's just that over 1 million acres is being eyed by developers now in Colombia, and there have been a lot of protests going on. So I'm sure that as time goes on, we'll need to do more fundraising. And the other thing is that I have, since 2004, and I've reprinted, and I am reprinting again, this book is called The Call of Mother Earth, how a being of light draws forth humanity's response. And I'm so excited to realize that these people in Colombia are responding to Mother Earth's call, as are all of us. So I feel like I'm in the right place right now. And I have a lot of books which I would really like to be more publicized, and I don't know how to do it. But this is a verse narrative, all in dialogue, and it could be acted out by children. So if anyone has an idea of how to do that, I'm in process of reprinting this book. So I'm so glad to be here, and I'm very inspired by all of you.
Well, right back at you, Claire, sister. We're inspired by you.
That's a riot. Thank you.
Well, there you have it. You're famous, Claire. You're famous.
So you see, I belong here because I'm into this whole subject.
You absolutely belong here. This is your welcome home, sister. Welcome home. Seriously.
Thank you.
And so there you have it. And I'm so glad that you experienced it. You were a part of it. You were part of co-creating the first press conference, what I call the press conference, singular. Thepressconference.org is where you'll find that. You don't even have to write that one down. You just
That was the first one, huh?
That was the very first one.
Wow.
And I spent 2 months just working my tail off to make that happen. And then we took a little break, and now we're working on the systems to make that way more efficient so we can make it scale up. Because the truth be told, I kind of burned out over those 2 months getting that thing together. But now that you've experienced it, you've been a part of it. Franca too, Marco also presented, dozens of people presented on that first day. The idea was 2 minutes each, 2 minutes each. I think that's too little time. I think we need more like 5 minutes each. And instead of trying to do 100 in one day, maybe 40 or 50, something like that. So, this is all a refinement. It's a work in progress. It's an evolution, all those good things. On and on. But I really think we're onto something here. And but again, the vision. So just like you see in that logo at the top with all the speech balloons, we want to facilitate people who've never presented at a press conference before. Had you ever presented at a press conference prior to that one, Claire?
Not at a press conference.
Okay. So we're taking people who have never presented at a press conference before in their life and giving them a stage, a microphone, recording, and publishing. But the press conference is just a part of it. The next thing that we're doing is those who present at a press conference have an opportunity to create a recurring open house where they say, okay, now that you've seen me talk for 5 minutes, right? And then on to the next speaker. If you want to come and have a conversation with me, come to my open house. And we facilitate that in breakout rooms from our main Zoom room. So you don't even need your own Zoom account. You can just show up here, say, hey, I'm here for my my weekly open house. Send me to breakout room 5, and anyone else who shows up who wants to go to my my open house, send them to breakout room 5. And whoever's there managing will have a list of all the breakout rooms that are happening that day, all the open houses that are happening that day, and they can direct traffic appropriately. Right? And so this is that, Save the World trade fair, metaphorically, that I talk about in Woodstock, New York in the summertime, but taken online in the Zoomosphere. And if you want to have your open house here at this is a 24/7 Zoom channel that we have here.
Oh,
and it's called The Conversation. This Zoom channel is called The Conversation. And it's 24/7, everyone's welcome. And our vision is that see, right now, the only thing that's happening is this one Zoom room, but our vision is to have, a dozen rooms going in parallel with a dozen different open houses, a dozen-ish at any given moment. Hey, I'm here for the one about, a skyscraper permaculture. Oh, great. That's in, breakout room number 17. Click, click, and you're there talking with the person like Claire, who presented for 5 minutes a week ago about skyscraper permaculture or whatever the topic is, right? And so the idea is that all of these topics and movements matter. And though it's painful for some people to hear, some of them matter more than others in terms of urgency, right? Like I sometimes give the example of a dysfunctional family where, the dad's alcoholic, the mom is on Quaaludes, the oldest son joined a gang, the daughter is on drugs and mixing it up with the wrong kind of people and staying up all night, and she's never home, and on and on. And the house is on fire. So what's the first call going to be, to the father's AA sponsor, to the mother's counselor, to the older brother's truant officer, or the fire department? Let me think about that one. But let me not think too long, because if I think too long, I might die of asphyxiation or third-degree burns, right? But you know what? That's just my perspective. Somebody else may have a different perspective. And so the idea is create this marketplace of ideas, of conversations. Create a marketplace of ideas and conversations and open houses. And you know what? The cat is going to go wherever if the cat wants to go smell some other cat's poop, it'll do it. And what we're saying with the press conference is let it, right? If somebody has an open house called cat poop composting, hey, I will be the last person to stand in their way. In fact, I'll be the first person to promote them and their open house, which is what we do every Thursday at the press conference.
Every Thursday, what time?
Starting at 11 a.m. Pacific time.
11 a.m. Pacific.
And, warning, it's a work in progress. Right? And it's very far from perfect. And we're figuring it out as we go along.
How long do you let it go on?
Well, this last one went late into the night. The one on November 19th that you participated, had you hung in there, you wouldn't have gotten any sleep that night.
Wow.
Because we just went late into the night. I finally took a break at 9 p.m. or something like that Pacific time after 10 hours. But I went to bed so happy because we had done it. We made it happen. And and so many people just really loved it, and for great reasons, for so many good reasons, because it's just so exciting that we can finally have a marketplace, not a financial marketplace, but a marketplace with much more valuable currency than any kind of money, gold or Bitcoin or anything like that. Way more valuable currency, which is the currency of people's attention. The most precious commodity on earth is people's attention. So we're creating a marketplace where people offer up whatever they're focused on. And what I really love about what Franco was saying earlier is, you see, for an efficient marketplace, you need to be able to make your offering efficiently and say, look, this is what it is. And if you're interested, here's the link, and we'll see you there. So let me share with you all yet another thing that's a part of this. So we got all these open houses, right? And you might think, okay, great. I'm going to go to the press conference, and with my yellow pad, I'm going to write down everything that I hear about that's interesting. And I hope I got that URL right, and I hope I got the time right. Well, we have a solution where you can stop hoping. And let me get this image up for you. Okay. So we are creating a thing called Snack Bar. Snack Bar. All right, Cesari's back, and I'm gonna have to let him know we're still deep in the conversation. Cesari, welcome back, brother. What's up? What's up? What's up?
Hey.
Hey, so thank you for coming back, and we're still deep in the conversation. We're actually recording right now, and you're absolutely welcome to stick around. I think you'll like what you're about to see, because it's very much in line with what you've been working on for quite a while. Hey, what's up, sister? How's it going? Welcome.
She can't. German says hi.
Okay, thanks. Anyway, here, let me screen share. So if you don't mind just going with the flow here. So we've been talking about, just to catch you up, Cesari, we've been talking about solar radiation management, cooling the planet, reflecting this bright light back into space to cool the planet. Then we've been talking about feeding everyone to help shift humanity's mindset out of individual hoarding for individual survival. And then we talked about the press conference, which Claire and Franca and Marco and you presented at on November 19th. And then I was about to show where all this is leading. And so the basic idea is you present at the press conference, and then you invite the world to come to your open house, with ideally a recurring open house. So it's a recurring conversation. And you can build support, not unlike ILP, right? Anyway, but then here's the next innovation that we're going to layer on top of that. And let me just show this visual of it. This is a visual, just a conceptual image of this thing called Snack Bar that we're creating. And so if you look at the different layers, so imagine that each of these is like a category, a topic category. So at the very bottom, you have kind of like root causes. See, if you look on the left side, it's sort of like a mega category. So you have root causes of our problems. You can look at the evolutionary history of humanity, trace things back there. You can talk about totalitarian agriculture. Thank you, Daniel Quinn. You can talk about separation and how did that all come to pass. Totalitarian agriculture, by the way, was the root of that. Dark forces and shadow, if you're into that. And then let's go one layer up. So think of this as like an archaeological dig. Way down at the bottom are like the root problems, all right? What caused all this? Then one layer above are chronic world problems like overpopulation, politics, economics, and our entire set of living arrangements. Think Donald Trump. You've got organized crime. Think about the criminal drug cartels that I was talking about earlier. You have acute world problems like hunger, destruction of the biosphere, pandemics, planetary overheating, economic collapse. Then you have mega solutions like economic and political transformation, veganism, a new story for humanity, right? Solutions to the coronavirus, solar radiation management. And then at the very top level, meta solutions. So if all these are solutions, what's the goose that lays the golden egg, right? And the goose that lays the golden eggs, plural, of all these solutions. And I call that CSI, collective superintelligence. So one of the topics is the urgency and criticality of CSI. What is this and why is it so critical? And I see it as a pathway. So the journey to CSI. Anyway, this is just one stab at something. It's not meant to be perfect or complete or anything like that. But anyway, I just wanted to share those images.
Fabulous.
Thank
That
you.
is complete, very complete. I took a picture of it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Now, what this is called, so that's a conceptual image of something that we call snack bar. I'll put it in the chat, which stands for the social network of actual conversations, snack bar. And so the idea is this: whoever makes a presentation at the press conference, their presentation gets categorized. So if it was a presentation about, say, the community cafe, that hopefully you see that image on your screen, that would go into the category of hunger and ending hunger, right? And your presentation would go in the direction of both saving the biosphere and also empowering indigenous peoples, saving, and I would say saving and empowering indigenous peoples and their habitats, et cetera. And all those, couple dozen categories that you saw on that last screen, those are just high level categories. Imagine you click on one of those and you see subcategories, right? And some of those might even branch into subcategories. And you would see both the presentations, the press conference presentations for each category, subcategory, and so on. But you would also see the various open houses, recurring open houses scheduled on any of those. So you might say, wow, that presentation, that's really great. I really loved what Claire said. Gee, how do I talk with her? Well, it turns out that Claire very generously carves out 2 hours out of her week every Thursday afternoon and has an open house where anyone and everyone can join her in conversation and say, Claire, I'm so glad I finally got to meet you. Thank you so much for making this time for us to show up and ask you questions. How did you do it? I mean, I've been dreaming of doing how did you do it? Oh, well, here's how we did it, right? And we're actually part of this network and we're not alone and oh my goodness. And you see how that opens up a whole world for people. And I call it the social network of actual conversations, because I would characterize what we're having right here as an actual conversation. Right?
Yeah.
And contrast that with Facebook or Instagram, where it's just like images in your face and articles and this and that, but it's all static information. It's not information that you can talk to and that then talks back to you, that you can converse with, right? It's just static.
Although they do. They text back and forth and they make nasty comments a lot of the time.
And you see, that's this texting back and forth and nasty comments. Where I got the idea of an actual conversation, I'll tell you the story. It was years ago. I was single and my buddy was single. And so he was up on match.com and he's saying, Jamin, you should get up on match.com. It's a great way to meet ladies. And so he said, I said, okay, well, let me read your post. So I read his post and he said, here's who I am and and here's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for And, he had several things, qualities, characteristics, whatever. But what jumped out at me is he said, and I want someone with whom I can have actual conversations. And that just stuck with me. Actual conversation. And I said, you know what? That's what the world is missing. A place, a space, a network of actual conversations. And I was driving with my buddy, Jamie, and we're driving on a rainy night, heading towards Southern Washington to meet up with another colleague who helped co-create all of this. And I was like, Jamie, that's what the world needs, a social network of actual conversations. And then I said, wait a second, what does that spell? S-N, snack bar, right? And here we are. So you could think of it as a progression. And so you go to snack bar. Yes, you can search by category and all that, but we're also going to have a calendar where you can just click on the calendar and say, what's happening right now? I don't want to wait till next week or whatever. What's happening right now, right? And you can see all the conversations that are happening right now. It could be Cesari's book club. It could be, some meeting on permaculture or on saving, the Amazon region of Colombia, right? And so this is all part of this marketplace of ideas manifested as a marketplace of conversations, right? And so through this marketplace of conversations and through perhaps mechanisms of voting and saying, hey, I like this. I really think humanity should focus on this, which is something Cesare is deeply committed to and works very hard at. We could ultimately have a stack ranking of those projects, missions, goals, objectives, what have you. So, and again, not in a winner takes all kind of situation, but just so you can see, hey, what is the entire community saying? Hey, this is what the community is basically saying. This is the number one thing. And here's the number 2 and the number 3 and the number 4 and so on.
It encourages collaboration as a result.
Absolutely. And some people may say, listen, yeah, I'm interested in number 736, and I don't care that I'm not one of the, mobs of people swarming around number 1 or number 2. I'm doing my own thing, and I'm different, and I'm proud of it. And so what, right?
Jamin, I do have to tell you, you're talking about exactly what we're doing with the International Logic Party and the worldwide stock market of ideas.
Yeah, no, this was partly inspired by you, Cesare, and what you're doing. So God bless you and thank you.
And actually, it's funny that you bring up number 736, because I actually want to look up what is the number 736 idea in the worldwide stock market of ideas. Actually, that idea has been deleted. So whatever that idea was, it's not there anymore.
Oh, shucks. Damn it.
It just, it's probably, it used to have supporters, but it doesn't anymore because no one was supporting that one anymore. But it's okay. There's probably 737. Actually, no, there is no 737. That was also deleted.
Oh.
Hold on. 739. Oh, 739. There is an idea. There is an issue.
What is it?
It would seem apparent that the majority of our planet's issues are caused by the polarity of masculine versus feminine desire and action. This dynamic is strongly reinforced by our typical parenting choices. This idea seeks to bridge the masculine/feminine gap through public awareness/education about actual physical and emotional needs of all genders. Such an initiative would seek to transform the traditional upbringing where boys are taught to act like men and girls are taught to act like women, and also reduce each side's tendency to focus on its own condition with little cross-gender nurturing. The following article, Gender Bias by Stacy Gustafson, illustrates this. So this continues. I'm going to put this in the chat, but since you brought up numbers of ideas, that's the next.
Awesome.
You can also look up which position this idea is in. So.
No, I love it. I love it. And, it's kind of like an idea, in this case, a meta idea, whose time has come. When you've reached the moment in history where a big meta idea whose time has come, you find different groups working on that idea coming from different angles. And why not, right? So Cesare, you're working on it from kind of a marketplace of ideas with voting and with points and all that. And it's brilliant. It's super awesome. I'm coming at it from a standpoint of conversations. I'm saying, let everyone present whatever idea they have spoken on a Zoom video conference where they're recorded, et cetera, and then let them invite people to their open house to keep talking about it. And so you could think of it almost like different stages of evolution of an idea, what you have on your marketplace of ideas are what I would call, well-formed ideas. What you just read, idea number 739 or whatever, sounds like a pretty well-formed idea. And so what I think of as conversations, actual conversations, as the medium of formation of ideas, right? And challenging of ideas and evolution of ideas. So so each idea is constantly an evolution, a work in progress. And just like ideas that find their way into the marketplace of products and services, right? Every great product or service started off on the back of a napkin at a restaurant or the back of an envelope riding on a city bus and said, hey, what about this? And then that turned into a conversation. And then that conversation grew and grew. And then you had a bunch of people who were excited about it and they got together and did it, right? And the same can be true and is true of nonprofit organizations and, humanitarian and environmental projects, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think you and I are really fundamentally moving in the same direction, albeit, from different angles. And that's awesome. We need to come at this from a variety of different angles in order to really support what is ultimately a marketplace of ideas, projects, nonprofits, for-profits, religions, even. Some people are starting whole new religions. So let all flowers bloom. And then, of course, the bumblebees will congregate on whichever flowers or outcroppings of these ideas most call to them. And, my hope, I've made no secret of it. And this brings us back full circle. Once we have a well-functioning, efficient, and appealing marketplace of conversations, marketplace of ideas, or multiple marketplaces. So for example, out of a conversation, somebody might say, hey, do you know about Agora ILP? Because that would be a great place for you to publish your idea and get additional support, et cetera. People in ILP might make reference to Snack Bar, the press conference, open houses, et cetera. So through mutual support of different platforms and communities, the best ideas will bubble to the top. I mean, your whole platform explicitly supports that, right? There is always a number one idea at any given moment in time in Agora ILP. And of course, that very fact, it almost becomes a self-reinforcing feedback loop. You've probably studied these dynamics more than I have because you designed that platform. I only hear about it and have played with it a bit. But my main point, and this brings it full circle, if Jamin Shively is right, that SRM is crucial for survival, then you know what? The marketplace will bear that out and it will bubble up. It might not be number one, but hopefully it'll be top 10, right? And
an idea doesn't have to be the number one in order to be as influential as it needs to be.
Exactly. It could be number 100 and have plenty of juice to get fully implemented in the world at the scale that it needs.
Exactly.
I mean, like, gay rights didn't have to be the number one issue in the world in order to make it happen. Right. But enough people had to hear about it and enough conversations had to be had. In fact, Joe Biden really, one of the things I love him the most for is that he got out there and said, hey, people should have the right to marry whoever they love, regardless of age or sex or any race, anything, right? And with that, it finally clicked. And then there was like some holdout bar in Indiana that gays were prohibited from, and that suddenly became the focus of attention. And the American people finally said, you know what? Enough. Freaking enough. Right? Discrimination just doesn't work in this country. Joe Biden said it well, let them be, and voila. Now people get to do whatever the heck they want. Transgender, LGBTQ. I now self-identify as queer. I'm not even sure what the definition of that is exactly, but I feel like, wow, now I can self-identify as that. And
I can give you my definition if you'd like to hear it.
I'd love it.
Well, a queer is in a contrast to people who identify themselves as women or men or adolescents. So I identify a woman as somebody who serves the perpetuation of life. A man, the function of the man is to serve the woman, whereas an adolescent is someone who has not decided which role they want to play, and a queer is somebody who's trying to play both roles. They alternate between playing both roles, the man and the woman role. And a celibate would be somebody who does not want to play any of those roles. They're just not interested in playing those roles.
Interested. I had heard kind of a more expanded definition of queer, of someone who basically just doesn't fit in any category or something like that, or spans, but not just in terms of sexes and roles of the sexes and all that, but just in terms of ideology, philosophy, approach to life, etc. And so in my expanded definition, it's just different and proud of it or something like that. But anyway, the bottom line, I'm not trying to resolve that discussion or definition or anything, but just to say it helped me in my life, the whole LGBTQ movement, as I think it really ultimately helps all people, whether they know it or not. So anyway, but that's a side point. The main point that we were getting at is you don't have to be the number one idea in the world in order to be successful. And in my ideal world, both SRM and Feeding Everyone would be in the top 10, and they would both get fully implemented, along with all the other ideas that urgently need to be fully implemented in order for us to have a world that works, on which life can not just survive but thrive. And I really see a marketplace of ideas and conversations as being essential to that.
Well, the urgency seems to me to be the most important thing. I'm surprised that you can even wait for the marketplace.
But you see, I only got to this notion of a marketplace after banging my head in the wall over and over. So it's just like, what's it going to take? Well, it's going to take a jungle gym. Okay, well then I finally got the memo. We need a jungle gym. So let's build the jungle gym. Let's build the playground, really. A playground in which ideas can thrive and in which people can congregate. Cesare built a different kind of playground, and now the two are playing together in this conversation. How cool is that?
This could be a new kind of school. Everybody's learning online, and it's probably really boring and difficult, but this is much more alive because it's all conversation.
Exactly.
Imagine doing this for kids. Teachers and kids. Wow.
Oh my goodness. And guess what? We now have Shelley joining us from yet another marketplace of conversations and ideas and movements and people called Good of the Whole. How providential is that? Welcome, Shelley. Great to see you, sister.
Hi, Jamin. Yeah, this is the first time I've actually been in. That's crazy, isn't it? And wow, good to see you. Nice to meet you all. And yeah, this is I'm clearing out my space in the connection field so I can begin to just open my heart, open my body, open my mind to what's moving. And yeah, nice to meet you. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Welcome. You've come at a perfect moment, not just perfect, but I would say providential, because we were just talking about the marketplace of ideas, marketplace as a metaphor, really, the marketplace of conversations. And Cesare, who has his hand up, has a marketplace of ideas, which called Igora ILP. So Cesare, You go for it. You got your hand up.
1 second. First of all, I want to put the web address to our platform online. What I wanted to say is, I think human communication is actually kind of complicated, and it's very much dependent on geometry and math, essentially, because you are using the word conversation quite loosely, or maybe I don't have the right idea of what you mean by conversation, but through my experiences in communicating with people, both one-on-one and in larger groups, and in a structured setting and a non-structured setting, there are many different communication styles and communication formats, and they do make a very big difference in how information is spread and how democratic it is. Honestly, my favorite way of communicating is actually communicating one-on-one. It's having very focused, very direct conversations. And this is one of the aspects of what it means to have a conversation. It's when you say something, you are speaking to somebody, and you're actually anticipating on hearing their response after they've processed that information. And then you want to hear what they're saying. And then you want to make a statement after processing what they were saying. It's a very much a feedback mechanism. I don't often find that here, actually, in this room. Well, no, it does happen here. It depends. It depends on the setting, but it doesn't always happen. Sometimes it is, it's very different from a presentation. And there are a lot of presentations that are given here. But so I actually really love conversations, but there are other communication styles and formats, and they can be very effective, especially if you're trying to include more people into that conversation. If you want to have a conversation, like a real conversation where somebody is sharing information, someone else is processing it, and you want to hear that feedback so that then you can reprocess it and so on. It's listening, it's active listening, responding. You do need a more structured format in how to manage time. One of my favorite things has become to actually have a format where people are making statements. So it does require a larger block of time. If you're having a larger group of people, you're gonna need more time so that the cycle can happen multiple times, because you need multiple cycles to happen. And so that format is based on somebody making a statement and then and actually wrapping it up, actually concluding that statement, and then letting another person speak, and then very much a turn-based system. But each person who wants to speak, then they understand that they can speak as long as they want, as long as they're saying something, but they're supposed to bring that statement to a conclusion. And just because somebody else says something in response to that, response to what that person said, that doesn't give them immediately a chance to reply. They have to wait their turn. They have to process what statement the other person is making. And then once everybody takes their turn, and whenever your turn it is to speak again, then you do that. So I think that if you really want to have actual conversations, I think you have to be cognizant of the geometry that's involved, the math. So I just wanted to point that out. So yeah, actually, I think I'm done, or whatever point I was going to make. If I lost sight of my point, I think.
No, it's a great point. And in fact, Shelley's off camera for a little bit. Shelley, I presume you can, yeah, Shelley can hear. Let me just recap for Shelley so she can see the whole, hey, Shelley, the whole trajectory of this conversation, or really composite of conversations over the last 4.5 hours. I started off talking about the urgency of solar radiation management, reflecting a portion of the sunlight that's landing on the Earth back into space so it doesn't heat up the planet to begin with. I believe that's absolutely urgent to cool the planet, to stop the exponential overheating, first of all, and actually reverse it,
cool the planet so we can have a livable planet. That then led to a conversation about what's it going to take for why doesn't humanity, why has no one heard of this? Why is no one talking about SRM, much less doing it, right? And that got us into the conversation of the game that we're all trapped in right now. Like it or not, believe it or not, we're all trapped in a game called individual hoarding for individual survival, where the collective suffers and people suffer. And the prize, the consolation prize of losing at that game is death by starvation, a very humiliating and painful way to go. And so we talked about the solution to that: food healers, feeding everyone. If you're in gallery view and you can see non-video participants, you'll see the community cafe image, which is something we pioneered in Southern California in 2015, feeding entire communities for free, no cost, just free food, nutritious free food, served up hot in a community atmosphere, and everyone loves it. Now we're taking that show on the road with food healers, delivering food to people's communities so they don't have to leave their homes and go out and scramble to either beg or borrow or steal or work for some slave wage, but just food comes to you just as a basic human right. And that could be a first step towards making all basic human needs basic human rights: food, shelter, healthcare, transportation, etc., all done very efficiently. So we talked about solar radiation management, and we talked about feeding everyone as potentially an essential first step to getting people liberated from this trap of this all-day monopoly game that we're stuck in, called individual hoarding for individual survival, where the cost of losing is you get to starve to death. And it sounds pretty horrible, because it is. And anyway, I believe food healers, feeding everyone nutritious plant-based foods for free as a basic human right, is the first step towards liberating humanity from this game where we're all competitors of each other and therefore, in a sense, enemies of each other. And I believe that until we liberate humanity from that game, we really won't be free to even look at big things like SRM, which don't even fit on the monopoly board. There's no red plastic hotel called SRM, right, that you can make money at, that you can charge rent for, right? It's an essential public good that simply has no space on the monopoly board. And from there, we said, okay, if we want to get the world, and I see your hand, Cesario, if we want to get the world to a place where the most essential, the most urgent, the most critical solutions can bubble to the top and get the attention and resources and focus that they need, how are we going to achieve that? How, what's it going to take? And that led us to a conversation that includes, but is certainly not limited to, something I'm going to share on the screen real quick, which you and I have spoken about, Shelley, which is the press conference, right? Where basically, and just like all these speech bubbles indicate, a market, I don't really like the term marketplace, but I've used it enough, a marketplace of conversations, a marketplace of ideas. So at the press conference, which happens every Thursday, these are images from the very first one on November 19th. And as we scroll down, I'm sure you'll see a bunch of familiar faces. Dot Maver, Pato, and Antoinette. And you see here a list of the topics that were presented one at a time. Talk about structure, very structured. Here we were trying to limit it to keep it to about 2 minutes, but then we found out that wasn't enough time. I can see Shelley smiling and laughing. Just kidding, that's just your image. But anyway, now we've upgraded it to 5 minutes. But anyway, those are details. Here you get to see the different topics that were presented at the press conference. And the idea is you present at the press conference and then you point to your open house conversation, ongoing conversation. And to bring it back to what you were talking about a few minutes ago, Cesare, that, you know, about structure and rules and geometry and mathematics and all that. Just imagine, right, that just like a marketplace of ideas and conversations, there's a marketplace of rule sets, for lack of a better word, a marketplace of conversational structures, right? And if you're going to have an open house, you get to choose which structure you want to overlay on that 2 hour or 4 hour or half hour or 6 hour or whatever period of time you dedicate to that recurring open house, and whether it's weekly or monthly or daily or whatever. So whatever your topic is, you get to choose the structure. I sometimes refer to that as culture. You get to choose the culture of the conversation. Some people might say, hey, we've got a culture where anyone can talk whenever they want and interruptions are permitted and all that. You know, I wouldn't be too comfortable in that kind of culture, but some people like that. So far be it from me to prohibit that, etc.
That's like shared agreements.
Exactly, shared agreements. And we've had lots of conversations about shared agreements right here on the conversation.cc. Marco, notably, Marco and I have participated extensively in those, along with a lot of other folks, and it's a very exciting topic. And so yeah, shared agreements for every conversation. But by default, whoever is organizing the conversation gets to be responsible for, if at a minimum, facilitating the conversations that lead to those shared agreements. And one of the best examples I've seen of that is the Nova Sutras down in Santa Cruz, the folks who love trees and forests. All righty, Cesare, speaking of shared agreements, Cesare has his hand up. Go ahead, Cesare.
Since you were talking about ideas, I just wanted to give everyone a little recap of what the progress since, well, technically it ended up being regress, of one of your ideas in the worldwide stock market of ideas, Jamin. So I'd like to share my screen to show where that idea stands currently. And for those who are new, I'd like to also get them up to speed and what we do here. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
So sharing the screen here, what we are looking at, this is the worldwide stock market of ideas. And the purpose of this website is so that every person can develop their own political philosophy out of various ideas to show which ideas are most strongly supported by the people. And then to, according to the people's ideas, create new political candidates who actually represent what the people think and want. I'm just logging in here. Now we have people from all around the world, from all different nations. This is how many users we have. How many of those users have declared themselves as members of the International Logic Party? But I want to bring your attention here to the indexes. And we're going to look at all categories of ideas because there are universal ideas, there are national ideas. So generating the index here, I was looking for Jamin's idea. I wanted to see where this idea stands. And so it's actually in 160th place. It did fall a bit since it failed to gain any more support. But maybe after this conversation, maybe this idea will move up a little bit further. But so these ideas are organized by how many points they have and how many supporters they have. So this is idea number 160. We should buy fresh produce in bulk directly from farmers, turn it into delicious vegan stews, and distribute it through a sophisticated automated supply chain using self-driving trucks directly to the people for free. So that's the idea. I gave credit to Jamin Shively here. And so anyone can actually open this idea and add this idea to their philosophy to support it so that the idea can rise further. But like I said, it's in 160th place. It only has one supporter at this time. None of which are Jamin Shively, I must say. So Jamin, that idea is waiting for you, but I just wanted to show you there are other ideas here in the worldwide stock market of ideas. This is the number one idea. It's about the universal basic income. It has 125 supporters from 8 people. This is the number 2 idea. 72 supporters from 4 people. It's about criminal justice system reform. This idea in 3rd place, it's about orphan children and their status in society. So it has 63 points from 7 supporters, and so on. So all these ideas here are listed according to how many points these ideas have received from however many people. And so the best ideas make their way to the top, in the process of us discussing these ideas. And that's what this section here is for meetings. And so we call them citizen assemblies. It's an opportunity for people to come together to deliberate these ideas, well, first of all, to present these ideas and to deliberate them. Actually, the next meeting is on Wednesday, January 6th at 7 p.m. Central Time in the USA, which is 5 p.m. Pacific Time. I don't know what we're going to be discussing, but, well, I mean, I always bring up an idea because this is kind of an introductory meeting. So I usually start out usually I start out with the universal basic income topic, because that's a very interesting conversation starter. It's a big idea, but it's actually not that complicated, but it leads to a lot of other interesting ideas. But of course, Jamin, if you want to show up to Citizen Assembly and present an idea such as the one that we just read earlier about turning, buying vegan food in bulk from producers and so on. That's what we do, breakout rooms, so people can present what they want to discuss and have an opportunity to discuss that idea. And maybe if it's a good idea, the idea will make it up further, the idea dominance index. I'm personally not a fan of that idea, and because I think actually we should have a universal basic income, which is the number 1 idea. I'm a supporter of this idea. I give it 15 points. I think the government should pay people for actually being members of that society, because maybe those people would rather be a part of some other society. And if their government pays those people for it, then I think it's just like business. Governments should compete over people, just like businesses compete over market share. And that's really what's going to keep governments efficient. And of course, I do support all kinds of other ideas that I think are good. So I do invite all of you to my ideological profile to look at some of my other ideas. But the essential thing is, it's having these discussions about these ideas. That's how these ideas make it further up. And by the way, I just wanted to let you know, Jamin, well, you and everybody else, but this platform, the Worldwide Stock Market of Ideas, is built specifically for the International Logic Party. And originally, the meetings that you can schedule through the platform, they were intended to be citizen assemblies. And excuse me, I'm sorry. They were supposed to be International Logic Party meetings, which are only really for people who have declared themselves as members of the International Logic Party. And essentially what that entails is people who are dedicated to rational politics. That's what it comes down to. But actually, Igora is such an interesting tool. And we do have so many organizers, like citizen assembly organizers, who for whatever reason don't want to declare themselves as members of the International Logic Party. And I was thinking, like, we should not be putting this limit on that. Like if this is a way for people to come together and have these discussions, I don't want to call them conversations, but they can be conversations. They're discussions. They're much more thorough. They're more official. They're more formal. Of course, they can be in a more casual conversation style, but yeah, so people could use that to just organize conversations. But anyways, the point is that we're going to be changing the platform to enable any user to organize a meeting and actually have outreach to other people to schedule meetings and have those discussions and conversations. So that's going to be the change that's coming up. And I'm looking for ways that we can collaborate. And like I said, I want us to be doing a book club in your room here really for mutual benefit. But at the same time, we can start some of the events that are being held here in the conversation room. Maybe they belong actually being posted in Igora. Maybe people should be posting them there so that our more political community can have access to other events too, some things that are a bit more casual. So there might be a place for all kinds of events. Essentially, basically, Meetup used to be very helpful to us, but they've been really kind of pissing us off. Sorry for the language, but they've been actually really infringing upon our ability to bring democracy to the masses. So we're thinking, we're not just going to take down Facebook. Why not take down Meetup also? So let's do that. You know, while we're at it, let's go big or go home. Anyway, so people will be able to schedule other events in Igora, not just International Logic Party meetings. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with that, including maybe just ordinary conversations. I yield the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Cesare, and I commend you on your concision. You've as you've made your case numerous times, I see it's getting a lot more honed and very, very efficient. And this gets back to something Franco was talking about earlier, of the power of concision. And we have with us someone who has been doing this, to my knowledge, a lot longer, and been really made amazing progress, and that's Shelley. And in fact, you know, this is a really wonderful example of just this constellation of these different communities and platforms that are all working together and cross-pollinating. And, you know, so the question has come up over and over, you know, should we be trying to consolidate, or is it best that we, you know, kind of federate, for lack of a better word, and we all coexist, each with our different respective cultures and areas of focus, and all that, and support each other? And, you know, how do we best do that? And so, you know, just for example, another group that's in the same part of the galaxy as we are, a similar part, is the Sign Network. And so working with indigenous peoples, and Brother Phil in particular, and many, many folks, they did Enlightening Our Way Together in December, and now they've got the Martin Luther King weekend coming up, which we're a part of. So we're kind of, it's like we're coming together and collaborating on specific events. So this space, the conversation.cc, is going to be one of the 4 main rooms of MLK, the Martin Luther King Jr. weekend, coming up January 15th through 18th. And but it's and then there's also the chat people, you know, Stan Pokras and his community, which is, to my knowledge, something like a 24/7. I don't think they actually meet 24/7, but something close to it. Shelley's group, meanwhile, meets, the Good of the Whole meets every day. And so it's just an ongoing topic. You know, how do we do this, and how do we do it, you know, most efficiently and effectively for achieving the big goal of saving and healing and transforming life on Earth, which we all agree to. And anyway, I'd love to hear from Shelley whenever it's good for you, not to put you on the spot. And in fact, I'm going to pause record 2, 1. All right. Shelley, welcome. Love to hear from you.
Well, thank you. Pretty much of an honor, and doing a lot of listening. And Cesare, that was pretty impressive what you were showing. So I haven't really come into the Conversations Cafe that much, because as COVID began last February, just so you have a little bit of background. So I'm one of the founders of Good of the Whole, a nonprofit organization focused on cultivating an ethos of wholeness and a whole worldview. So really doing that through heart resonance and, you know, really listening. And I think it goes right with your question, which is how do we build coherence together? Because we don't want to create more noise than already is. And that's, you know, and how do we do that? So in February, up arose this idea of the connection field, which is, in a sense, in some ways, it's similar to Conversations Cafe, being the fact that it's a platform, and it's been, you know, for the first 4 or 5 months, it was going about at least 14 hours a day, and now it runs 12, with some space in between. And so I just became consumed in that, I became the space holder for the creator of that. And so there's all these different, so similar to Jamin, just holding the field for all these different people, different offerings. And, and so I'm just kind of beginning to come out of that because it's running on its own. And so for me, it's where I find, so I'm all about, in the connection field and good of the whole, it's all about listening to the intelligence of the unified field. How do we do that? How do we track? So if we're thinking about conscious evolution, we have to move ourselves a little bit out of the way so that without, of course, we're part of the whole, and each one of us is a sphere of wholeness. Cesar, you've got your thing, James, and we have all these different pieces. But how do we, if you understand evolution is always, even through chaos, is always evolving into its highest potential. So guess what? If we learn how to track that, then we're always living at that edge of evolution, and therefore each one of us begins to have a embodied experience and sense of what is ours to do for that. And to me, what I've seen over the years is that when we track the intelligence of the field, so if we begin to learn how to do that, and in order to do that, we have to slow down. There's no way. You can't rush. You've got to slow down enough to feel, and then sort of come in with everybody and create a field of coherence. So everyone's, not, my thing, no, my thing, no, my thing. Well, let's follow, if you end up having that, we're always going to be where we always have been. But what I've been experiencing is the magic of this field. And essentially it's tracking, love at its highest frequency in some ways. And when we're doing that, then Cesare or whoever, Marco, whoever, then we naturally come in contact with each other at some point, and it becomes really clear, this is part of the attractor field. For how long? I don't know. But if that attractor field, and there's no right or wrong, it's just like, this is to me, I know there's always this talk about network of networks, right? Well, what is the greatest network? Is the web of life itself. If we can understand how to follow that song line of our heart, right, then the coherence happens organically, and we know who and when and what. But we have to learn how to live transparently and honestly with ourselves first. So the connection field, and I've been this sort of example is kind of funny. I have been in the past a macrobiotic cook. And years ago, and because I was sick, way back, and I learned something and it came up a couple of days ago, and I thought, well, this is really interesting, because, if you have an electric stove, what happens is the water boils from the center out. It's always going out, 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 right? But if you're cooking on a fire or on gas, guess what happens? And you can check this out for yourself. The water boils from the out in. So it's like that toroidal field. So to me, what I've been kind of waking up inside of is, so the connection field, or, is helping people to actually come in to completely get that feeling of what, I love to call it the home frequency, that sense of like coming home. When we come home to ourselves, we relax. Like, what would happen if we could just relax, all of us? And I get it, save the world, do this, although I'm not so much about saving the world anymore. But with that is like, if we can relax, then we're going to have fun with each other. We're going to have a good time instead of I can say this because I've been a total control freak, and I've been pushing my way through life. So, but if I can relax in my body, then the things that happen in the most magnificent ways. And so that's kind of how I'm beginning to understand it, that, some organizations like Sign, out. I mean, they're flying, they're amazing things. There's no right or wrong here, right? But if we don't come back, if we don't be like that toroidal field and come back inside and do that self-nurturing, and connect with community in real and powerful ways, then we're going to burn out. And I'm a perfect example of that. So to me, it's like, how do we stay in that frequency that is always creating aliveness, that's always creating more love, that's always creating a sense of like, I don't have to tell you who I am. I just be who I am, and I can relax. And so that's, maybe that's sort of extreme from what's been shared, but I think it's a both and of how do we stay in that harmonic flow so that we connect with just the perfect people in just the right time. And, we learn how to really, or actually we watch. That's the beauty of the field, is we get to watch it happen in ways that we could never, ever imagine. And that's what I'm definitely someone behind the art, the magical aspect of love, but it's also the most practical way. And when we're that, then everything flows, things don't go awry. And so I don't know, thank you for letting me share. And I don't know, I'm just listening, and I get out of balance, and I had to go into the woods after the connection field for 7 months. I was like, okay, I'm out of here. 2 weeks, gone. Don't call me, nothing, right? But I don't want to have to do that anymore. I want to find a way that, and a wave, because it's tracking wave motion, right? We're learning how to track that golden thread. And then so beautifully, we can just fall in love with each other. And then to me, that's the transformational thing that's going to change the world, is that people actually feel that from us. And so with that, I thank you for letting me share. And here I am in the Conversation Cafe. So I'm listening and I'm learning from you too. So thank you.
Wow. Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Wow. Thank you, Shelley. Thank you. Well, I want to hear from everyone. I see Cynthia has her hand up, and Cesare, you need to get rolling. Did you want to say a last couple of words before you roll?
Well, yeah, I was hoping that we could have a conversation about doing the book club here and to what extent we can collaborate, but this wasn't the best time for you. So can you suggest another time that we could focus on that?
Thursday would be awesome. All right. Would Thursday work for you, Cesare?
Yeah, it can also work. I was hoping to do it sooner than later, like I said, because I was hoping we could start today, actually, and, start doing something.
Well, you can have a breakout room whenever you want, including right now, for the book club or whatever you want to do.
Sorry to cut you off, but no, because the idea was that we would stream it so that we could promote it through our network, so that we're in the main room and you can't really stream from the breakout rooms.
Gotcha. Okay, then let's have a conversation on Thursday about that, if that works for you.
That works great. So
Awesome.
What time?
So we start the press conference at 11 a.m. and
you're talking
I would say
Pacific time, right?
Pacific time. Yeah. So I'd say, probably for the book club conversation, we're going to need a couple hours just to get our bearings with all that. So I'd say anytime after 1 p.m. Pacific Thursday, and why don't you just pick a time, and then we can have that conversation.
You said one. Okay, so what time is the press conference? What is there? Is it only 2 hours?
No. But I'm just saying the first couple hours we're going to need for just kind of general topics on Thursday, and then after that, I'm just saying anytime after those first couple hours, we could block off some time to talk about the book club, because I think there's a number of folks who want to do book clubs, and anyway, I just think that would be a good time to anytime after that. And Cynthia, I see you got your hand up, and looks like you have something you want to.
But hold on, you're saying 3 p.m. then?
That would be Central Time. That'd be 3 p.m. Central, which is 1 p.m.
But that's
Pacific.
when the press conference starts. It starts.
No. It actually starts at 11 a.m. Pacific, which is 1 p.m. Central. The press conference starts at 11 a.m. Pacific,
So therefore, anytime after 1 p.m. Pacific time would be great.
Okay, so I'll be looking for you here at 1 p.m. Pacific. All right,
Awesome.
thanks.
Awesome.
Great.
With all due respect, I was under the impression that Marco and I had already got this worked out so that I could take some of the responsibility off his shoulders, so he's not having to live in Zoom. And part of that was me doing the book club starting tonight.
Yeah, that's got a little off track. When you were talking earlier today about the we I thought you meant was you and Jamin had discussed things. Since last I saw you, you were in the room with Jamin. So when you were saying we, I thought you were saying we, you and Jamin talk, not you and Cesare.
Oh, so because it's not Jamin, I can't do that. I can't take any of that responsibility from you.
No, it's
Is that
not
correct?
that, but there's been a confusion over what form that would take, and then whether it would be in a breakout room or not.
Okay. And I would like to speak to Shelley's points. Yeah, I love you. I got so much love in my heart for you. I completely feel you. And it's a very narrow path that I also walk, just trying to maintain that center so I can affect the world around me in a positive manner instead of being impacted by it in a negative manner. So to you. Yeah, if I still fail to see the problem with the book club. But if that's the way it's gonna first of all, the reason I volunteered is because every time I come to this room, Marco is sitting here by himself, and I just really wanted to take some of that responsibility off his plate. So I fail to see what the problem is, but obviously you guys see a problem, and when you guys get it handled, you can do your book club. Have an amazing day. I have a meeting to go to.
Well, actually, I just want to say real quick, I was hoping that we could all be there for that conversation. Myself, Jamin, Cynthia, Marco, because yeah, I know you guys talked about this before. I just wanted to talk about some other details of this, and especially as a type of collaboration and cross-promotional efforts. So there are more details to hammer out. I thought Cynthia did have it settled on some level, but I was thinking we could go deeper than that.
Well, when it comes right down to it, it's me only, and then whoever shows up. And I had just planned on you being there as well, Cesare, because you usually are where I am. It just seems counterproductive to put something off till Thursday that we can start today. And, but, you guys seem to have it handled, so please do enjoy that. I will see you guys later. Have an amazing day. I love you. I'm grateful.
Love you too, Cynthia. Thanks so much. See you soon.
Bye.
All right, Cesare. Thanks, buddy. Take care. All righty. Well, we are recording. We're continuing to record. By the way, if at any time anyone wants to pause recording, just say, hey, Jay, please pause or do this. If someone's mid-sentence, no problem. And I would love to hear from, yes, Shelley.
I'm just saying I have to go because I do have a meeting, but I'm looking forward to listening more. And yeah, it's beautiful, beautiful energy here. And thank you. Nice to meet you all.
Great to see you, Shelley. And look forward to seeing you. Come on Thursday. We'll have the press conference. Friday, the block party, and just come back anytime. We're almost 24/7, I would say.
Actually, when you were talking about how do we work together, I was realizing like tomorrow Elizabeth is doing a whole water day, right? And we have the connection water field is happening with Elizabeth, but I see like, oh, there it is. Look what's happening. We're sharing that if you want more, go to the Conversation Cafe, and she's part of Good of the Whole in the connection field. So I mean, there we go. There's the perfect example. So I wanted to just share that is happening tomorrow, and looking forward to that experience of going back and forth. So thank you. Bye, everyone.
Beautiful. Great to see you, Shelley. Awesome. Thanks so much. Wow, a day in the life of the conversation.
Yeah.
What are your plans? Are you planning to like continuing just indefinitely, or do you have a time when you end? Because I actually have some stuff I need to do. I'm reading Braiding Sweetgrass. I have to finish writing notes on that chapter for a Thursday night ecological meeting, and I probably should do that soon. It's been fascinating being with all of you, and I don't want to stop if you have a lot more to do or say.
We're just kind of going with the flow at this point,
See.
and it's just been fascinating. What a fascinating conversation. And you see, you know, these kind of, I mean, we'll probably be talking here for, I don't know, another hour or so. We'll probably take a break. In fact, now might not be a good time to might not be a bad time to take a break for a few minutes. I can check in with my partner and my mother-in-law and see how things are going. So let me pause recording, and then we can kind of check in with